Good morning and happy blessed Friday. I was thinking about the ways in which we communicate with each other, and it brought up the type of listener you are. What kind of listener are you? Are you one who listens to respond, or are you one who listens to really hear what the other person is bringing to the table? And I have been both in my life. I have been um, one where I've listened to respond, and I had to try to think about where that came from. Where did I learn that from? And growing up in a big family, sometimes I didn't feel like I had the opportunity to respond, or that what I was expressing wasn't being heard. And in response to that, I call it double dutch, right? Where people are turning ropes and they're trying to figure out when their turn is to jump in and to say their point. And they don't necessarily hear what the other person is expressing that is of concern, or is at the heart of the matter. Instead, getting their point across, or getting my point across, was more important than really listening and hearing what was being put out there. But as I've worked in the field of mental health, that listening muscle has been refined. Sometimes I find myself so quiet because I want someone who I'm listening to finish their thought process, and give it some space to really think about what the person is saying. And in listening to hear, you hear so much. You hear what the person is actually expressing. You hear what the person is saying between the lines, and you also hear what the person is not saying. And I think it is a valuable muscle and skill and tool to be able to sit in conversation with someone who maybe has to bring something forward that is interrupting the relationship or causing some friction. Um, and that process in itself, to me, is a really honest one where two people can set aside the emotions that may have been felt in the moment of feeling like they've been missed. It takes a lot of time and energy, and that is a relationship, right? That even when things aren't going in ways that you hoped or you planned, that you two care enough, and maybe just not two people, but you care enough to bring things to the table to discuss. And hopefully, you don't have a room full of responders, and you have people who are actually listening. And even when you're listening, the interpretation of what you're hearing can be different. And so I find it very useful when someone is talking to me, for me not to jump in and think that I know what they were saying, because my interpretation of what they're saying is going to be different based off of my life experiences. And my response is, I just want to see if I'm hearing what you're saying correctly. And I know it might sound corny to a bunch of people, but I'm telling you, it is something that is so very valuable, um, to then say back what I think I heard you say was, and then it leaves room to either the person to confirm it, or to say, no, that's not what I'm saying, and to try again. um, Communication sometimes feels like it's easy. Listening really feels like it's easy. But when you have different lenses and different perspectives and different ways in which people interpret and understand, you get to see how very complicated it is. It reminds me of when we talk about things getting lost in translation. We had a group activity with a group of women that I work with, and the game is called Telephone. And you whisper something in one person's ear, and by the time it gets to the very last person, what was said completely and totally gets lost in translation. with that particular game, you don't get to clarify with too many people. You just have to keep passing the message along, keep passing the message along. And that game in itself is good for understanding the ways in which different people hear and interpret information that they receive, as well as why direct communication, meaning that if something is going on between two people, more than two people, to really take a step back and to ask for clarification and understanding. So I wonder, are you a listener who listens to respond, or are you a listener who listens to really hear what's at the heart of the matter? And if you are one who listens to respond, try to understand where that comes from, where that response comes from, and push yourself to do a little better to really listen to hear. And if you listen to hear, I think you can always build upon that skill and refine it, because sometimes we can give people too much space. And so, again, playing double dutch, when is the right time to jump in? How much should I say? How much should I not say? Thank you for listening. I love you. Happy Blessed Friday.